Hi, I'm Phil Parker. I'm an expert on helping people make changes, and today we're going to be looking at how do you change patterns like dyslexia and learning difficulties so you can start to succeed and excel and have confidence in yourself once again. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about how dyslexia works, how people's brains who have dyslexia or learning difficulties work differently from other people's. Now, what's an interesting thing is, if you ask somebody who's got learning difficulties to write some letters, and then that's not their favourite thing, then what you notice is their whole brain state, their neurology, hits like a roadblock. It kind of judders to a halt. Often there could be fear, lack of confidence. And what's particularly interesting is when you ask them to do something very similar, like to draw a circle, most of them are quite fine with that, and yet mechanically drawing a circle is not very different from drawing an O. In fact, it's exactly the same thing. But their response to being asked to draw a circle or write an O is very different, because actually what happens is they start to use different parts of their brain. The part related to drawing has much less pressure attached to it. It's not something that tends to stress most people, because drawing is something you don't tend to get marked or people make judgments about you on. But whereas writing has a much different response, and we often see, as I say, a lot of stress, a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, a lot of upset. So all we've got to do then is to make sure the part of your brain that knows how to do the mechanical thing of drawing gets activated when you think about writing. Actually quite easy. All you need to do, and this works for the vast majority of people, is just to think about something you're good at. It could be anything, doesn't have to be anything to do with schoolwork, reading or writing, just something you're good at. Because what that will do is actually wakes up that part of your brain that's creative, inspired, confident, which is a part of the brain you need to be accessing when you're trying to do the writing stuff. So think about something you're good at, and just by doing that, will get your brain thinking in the right way that you can actually do it. There's some other skills you need. One of them is how to spell, which is covered in a different DVD, a different movie. But today we're going to look at transposition, which is when basically you confuse a B and a D. Very common, often happens with lots of other letters and numbers as well, but it's very easy to resolve. The reason is this. Sounds very simple, but if you look at me for a second, you can see I'm holding myself in this position. There'll be a blank screen in a minute, and when it comes back, I'll be in a different position. Now, of course, you can recognize that change. You can see that in one, before the blank screen, my hands were pointing this direction. Second one, they were pointing in that direction. Pretty easy to spot. Everyone can do that. What we find intriguing is when letters are involved, because that part of your brain that judders to a halt is being asked to work, it becomes very difficult, it becomes very confused. But when we take it out of the letter and writing context, people can distinguish these shapes very, very easily. So we just got to use that part of your brain that already knows brilliantly how to distinguish one shape from the other. So I'm going to show you some very, very simple slides, next part of the presentation. Now the slides are slightly childish in their design because we use these slides for smaller kids, but work with me and you can recognize very, very simply, you can master the difference between B and D.
So although this may seem like stuff for kids, it's a really simple way to get this absolutely clear in your mind. See the B, notice the direction it's going in, notice which way its feet are pointing. Pretty obvious, really. Anytime you see the B, it will always be flying this way.
Here's a dog. In exactly the same way, we can see the dog is looking off in this direction, and his feet are also facing in this direction too. Must be looking at something interesting over there. He's always looking that way. The dog always looks this way. That's all there is to it. Now what you're going to do is we're going to show you something. You have to work out whose feet it is, the bees or the dogs, and I bet you get it right. Here we go. Bee or dog? Yeah, it's a bee, isn't it? But You'll always remember this. This is the way the bee's feet face. There he goes. Now next up, whose feet are these? Yep, that's the dog's feet. Pointing this way, they always point this way. The dog always points this way. Here he is. Okay, so whose feet are these? If these were someone's feet, would it be the bee's or the dog's? It's the bee, wasn't it? And this one, yep, that's the dog's. Dog always faces that way, remember. So, again, whose feet are these? Yeah, there are bee's feet, and whose feet are these? That's the dog's feet.
So there you have it. Now you can tell the difference between B's and D's. And then of course, when you've done that, not only will that improve your confidence, you'll start to reroute this part of your brain that used to think that writing and reading were difficult, but also you can start to think creatively about how else you can apply this. Because what's interesting with people with spelling issues particularly and learning issues is they are really creative. They find loads and loads of different ways to spell the same word, whereas people who are good spellers only know one way. So you can use that skill of being brilliantly creative to start to make a change and start to really be the brilliant person that you already are in the classroom as well as out of it. Hope you have fun with this.